I have seen a lot of people waste a lot of money on Facebook ads, and it's purely because they haven't set it up correctly.
Do you have sort of a high-level recommendation for building the perfect Facebook ad?
That is the one Facebook ad that I think you should have running in your business 24/7. If the sales from your Tripwire product pay for your Facebook ads, then you can start increasing your budget, increasing your sales, growing your audience, and not really having to pay for it.
Hey creators, it's your hosts, Natalie and Yasmin, and you're listening to the Course Creation Podcast. We'll talk business, building digital empires, and how to create passive income to start living a life you love. We are here to empower those of you who are thinking of starting your own course and to support those who are already well on their way to success. We've built a 7-figure media agency on unique storytelling, and now we're here to share our story in the course creation world, and more importantly, to hear yours. We are committed to creating a space for learning and a space for diversity and inclusion. Now let's get the show started. 3, 2, 1, action. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Course Creation Podcast. I'm here with my partner in crime, Natalie, and our lovely guest, Jessica Tutton, joining us all the way from Australia. Jessica goes by many titles. She is a wifey, a business owner, and a stay-at-home mom of 2 sweet boys. She also spends her days helping entrepreneurs learn, understand, and navigate the world of social media and digital marketing. She's a Facebook ad and launch strategist, and we are really excited to have her on the show today to learn about her journey into entrepreneurship, digital marketing, and dig into some wisdom about cutting-edge social media marketing and Facebook advertising practices. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Jessica, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm so excited to talk all about Facebook ads and course launching and all that good stuff.
Amazing. That's what we love to geek out about. So it's such a pleasure to have you. Before we dive into all that juicy stuff, why don't you tell our listeners how you arrived in the course creation world?
Sure. So, like most online entrepreneurs, I kind of just fell into it. I definitely don't have any specific experience or training in building an online business. Previous to this life, I was a corporate insurance broker, and then I got married and I got pregnant. And on maternity leave, I just thought, I had a moment where I was like, this is life, having kids and staying home. And I wanted to find a way to build a business that gave me and my family more freedom. And so that's when I started learning all about the online business world. I dove into marketing. I tried a lot of different businesses until I arrived at the stage of, teaching Facebook ads. And that didn't start with online courses. Like initially I started with teaching Facebook ads at my local library. But at that stage I had 2 boys and I just thought, this is difficult and it's not scalable. How can I take what I'm teaching in a group capacity face-to-face and deliver it in a scalable business model? And that's when I launched my first online course teaching Facebook ads, and then everything's just progressed from there.
That's incredible. So Jessica, did you have any sort of background when it came to Facebook ads in your previous life and in your previous roles in the insurance space, or was this completely self-taught and new?
Completely self-taught and new. And I think if you speak to anyone that specializes in Facebook ads, they'll tell you that the best way to learn is to just dive in, spend a lot of money, practice, experiment, tweak, and continue to improve from there. So, I work with clients on a one-to-one capacity, managing their Facebook ads, dealing with big budgets, as well as teaching people that have really small budgets how to make the most impact, with such a tiny budget. So yeah, it's such a fun area to be in.
Facebook ads are definitely a fun area. They're also, that elusive thing that everyone says that you need to spend time to figure it out on your own, or you could work with an expert to help them figure you out. And it seems, for me, I feel like the minute I kind of got it, I'm like, I don't got it at the same time. So In your experience, would you say that Facebook ads is something that takes years and years and years to sort of master, or this is something that if you just continue to test and spend a lot of money, you can actually master within like a month's time?
I think the process of creating a Facebook ad, it's just a matter of clicking buttons, right? And anyone can learn how to do that. What is most difficult is the strategy behind the Facebook ads, what you're using Facebook ads to promote, your messaging, your funnel, and all that good stuff. Like it's not about the technical component that holds people back. It's about the bigger picture strategy. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. So yes, if you've already mastered your messaging, if you already have epic funnels that convert organically, and all you need to do is add that extra layer of driving traffic through Facebook ads, it's something that you can master easily within a month.
That's really good to know. I was going to ask, in terms of being ready to actually launch a Facebook, like launch your Facebook ad and dive into that realm, you mentioned you need to have your copy ready, your funnels ready, everything needs to be pristine, and you have to go through testing from a funnel side of things. At what point would you be ready to actually say, okay, everything's looking good, I'm just going to go with it, I'm going to see how it goes, and then go back and tweak my funnel again if the Facebook ads are not, or my funnel isn't working and the Facebook ads aren't generating the kind of revenue that I'd like?
Yeah, I would say that it's good to test organically first. Like whenever you create a funnel, if we're talking about course launches, one of the things that I love is validating a course before diving into a big launch. But once you've validated your course and you know that the individual components convert well, like for example, the landing page opt-in rate, the webinar conversion rate, once you know that those individual elements work well, it's easy to just add that Facebook ad layer on top of it. I would say you're absolutely ready.
Amazing. And did you sort of, when you got into the online digital marketing space, was it Facebook ads for you right away, or was there another area that you sort of wanted to explore?
Do you know why I love Facebook ads? It's the automation part of it. Like I actually suck at organic marketing just because I'm an introvert at heart, and I'm also like a mum of 3 boys. I'm super busy. I would love to be able to like get on top of my organic marketing strategy, be all over Instagram stories, post every day on Instagram and grow my following that way. But the reality is at this stage in my life, I just can't dedicate space and energy to learning those different strategies. And so that's why I fell into Facebook ads, because it's something that I can automate and scale while still having the lifestyle and the time to dedicate to my family. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And we can totally relate. Like, as you know, I also have a kiddo, and I'm married to a fellow who's never at home. So it's like, it's insane. And when we talk about Facebook ads, we are always talking about not doing the most. It's kind of like we could be doing the most. We could be live on social every single day. We could put up a YouTube channel. We could, what all the stuff we could be doing. But what I love about the idea of Facebook ads, or validating your offer with a Facebook ad, is that it could be overnight. It doesn't always happen overnight, but it could be overnight.
Yeah. Like if you look at one course launch, if you see like a 4 times return on investment, like if you spend $1,000 on Facebook ads for a course launch and you make, like a 5 times ROI, so make $5,000, then it's just a matter of like increasing your budget. What happens if you spend $20,000 on your ads? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like you can quickly scale. And I think that's something you don't see behind the scenes of a lot of the times, is how much people, and I'm talking like the big name entrepreneurs that have epic large launches, how much are they actually spending on Facebook ads in order to reach those goals? It's something like I feel like not a lot of people talk about.
Can we talk about it a little bit? And let's actually demystify it a bit, because I feel that a lot of people who are new in the course creation world, they're afraid to spend money on Facebook ads, and they don't spend enough to actually see a return on their investments. So I feel like you can definitely elaborate on do's and don'ts, but also in order to really have a successful Facebook ad, you need to just have a different mind shift in terms of how much you're spending. So let's dig deeper into that.
Yeah, I think if you're just getting started, firstly, you have to go with a budget that you're comfortable with, because if you invest a lot of money into Facebook ads and then you go into your launch with this fear and scarcity mindset, like, holy shit, I'm going to have to make my money back, like your energy will almost repel people, because you will go into your launch with that fear of losing money. So when you're just getting started, start with a budget that you're like comfortable to lose, so that you can still bring that fun energy to your launch. If that's like $1,000, that's an awesome marker, you know, to hopefully 5 times or 10 times your ROI. But then once you've done that launch, if you have seen a return on investment, try and stretch that to 5K. And then for your next launch, stretch it to 10K. And then for your next launch, stretch it to 20K. And what you're trying to do is keep the same conversion rates while scaling your budget. So that means trying to keep the same cost per lead as you scale your budget, and trying to keep the same conversion rate through your launch funnel, whether that's a webinar or a challenge.
Beautiful. So do you have a recommendation for like the minimum ad spend? You said $1,000, but do you think somebody can actually validate their funnel with less than that?
Yeah, absolutely. It depends what niche you're in as to what you can kind of expect from Facebook ads. Like if you're in the parenting niche, for example, you've got quite a large market to work with. So your cost per lead, like the how much you need to spend to get one person to your webinar might be like 50 cents. So you could expect like a 50-cent cost per lead. If you're in a really competitive niche, like targeting online entrepreneurs or course creators, or in my case, like course creators that have launched once and are ready to scale, your pool of people is quite small, and therefore you can expect a higher cost per lead, which means you need to spend more in order to get a good return on investment, right? So it depends on your niche. If you have that large niche, you could probably get away with spending $200 on a launch in order to get great results. I would say if you have a tiny budget, like let's say you only want to spend $50 or $100 on Facebook ads during your launch, instead of using that budget to drive traffic to your webinar, I would say the best way to utilize that budget would be for retargeting. So making sure your existing audience is seeing your ads for your webinar, but more importantly, your existing audience is seeing when the doors to your course are open and all that sales content, because that's going to drive more eyeballs to your sales page and therefore increase your sales.
And if you don't have an audience?
Yes. Well, if you don't have an audience, then you would use that budget to get more eyeballs onto your webinar, so your free content. Mm-hmm. So typically like the 3 stages of a launch and where I use Facebook ads is at the top of the funnel, which is normally to promote a lead magnet. So that's what I like to call step 1. So if you don't have any audience, then I'd recommend using Facebook ads like 6 weeks before you launch to build your list through promoting your lead magnet. The reason why I recommend that is because those ads are cheaper. Like it's cheaper to get a lead for a lead magnet than it is to get someone to attend your webinar, because it's less of an ask and it's a quicker win. The other benefit of that is like then they're on your list for 6 weeks and you can nurture them before you actually start selling to them. And then the second step would be to drive traffic to your webinar. And the third step would be to drive traffic to your sales page.
So Jess, you mentioned using a webinar a few times. Have you seen other models as well? For example, we're taking the tiny offer approach when it comes to our course launch. So we have an offer. It's about how to get started with, it's a video starter guide. So how to get started with videos and how to start creating videos for your business. And we are not offering a webinar off the top. But can you talk a little bit about different strategies of using Facebook ads to then lead you to the bigger picture?
Yeah, so the two, I guess, most common ways to launch a course is either through a webinar or a free challenge. But you're right in that those two launch strategies are mostly for higher end offers or memberships where like it's a bigger lifetime value of a customer. Typically, if I am selling a lower value product, especially if it's an evergreen product, meaning it's always available to buy, I always sell it on the thank you page after they've opted in for my lead magnet. Does that answer that question?
Like an order bump.
It
Yeah.
does. It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what Yasmin is sort of alluding to is the webinar funnel the one that you like to use the most? And like you mentioned, you do that for more of the high ticket items. But are there any other funnels that you would use to, build the list or even sell lower ticket items if you don't have necessarily a high ticket item to sell it yet?
Yeah, there are so many different funnels that you can try. Again, it's just about choosing something that works for your business, testing it organically, and then using Facebook ads to drive traffic to it. So, if you weren't interested, like webinars, I feel like are underrated. I love a webinar. And that's because when you can get people in the room with you to spend an hour with you while you share your area of expertise, they're going to be more likely to convert. It's also like a place where there are no distractions. Whereas if you're selling just on email or if you're hosting a challenge in a Facebook group, like that is a really distracting platform. People aren't willing to sit and watch like a 1 hour video in a Facebook group. Do you know what I mean? So that's why I typically tend to go for webinars. It's harder to get people there, but when they're there, they're more likely to convert.
Absolutely. It makes total sense also because, that conversion period of when somebody meets you for the first time and then when they're finally ready to invest with you becomes a lot shorter when they've spent an hour with you,
Yes.
watching your webinar. So it makes total sense. And I can see how for a higher ticket item, a webinar can work perfectly. And then the other funnels that we're sort of testing out right now is that sort of like low ticket items where, you run a Facebook ad and it's low enough that they're willing to say yes to it because it's a no-brainer, right? Like you've met all of their concerns and the price is low enough that they didn't need to spend an hour with you in order to convert.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and that's something I am seeing more of, like using Facebook ads to directly sell a low value course. So that's one option for a low value, or the other one would be selling it on the back of a lead magnet, or selling it in the email sequence after they've downloaded your lead magnet.
Yeah, all fabulous ideas. So for anyone's listening, write those down for your strategy for course launches. Let's dive a little bit deeper into the actual Facebook ad. There are so many different, intricacies that need to work together perfectly for the perfect Facebook ad. Everything from like audience targeting to making sure that, you're testing different interests and different genders and locations and all of this other stuff. And then also your copy and your creative. It's like there's so many factors. Do you have sort of a high level recommendation for building the perfect Facebook ad?
Yeah, I like to keep things really simple. Like for those people that have done my course, they're like, wow, we love how you kind of like do Facebook ads for dummies, as in take away all the different options and just keep it simple, especially if you have a small budget. Like if you have a small budget, you're better off not testing so much, right? Because otherwise your budget is divided by all these different, elements that you want to split test. But you can get great results by keeping things really simple. So I guess in terms of getting started, I would say the first tip is to make sure you're utilizing your pixel, right? Your pixel is everything. Make sure that's on all of your pages. Make sure you're setting up your custom conversions, which is how you track and optimize things in your funnel. Make sure you're setting up your custom audiences, which is where you can create audiences based on people who already know, like, and trust you. So you can create your custom audience based on people who are viewing your Instagram stories, people who are signing up for your lead magnet, people who are listening to your podcast by visiting your website, making sure all those audiences are set up, because that's not only going to help you with retargeting, but I guess when you're trying to grow your audience, one of the best ways to target a new audience is through a lookalike audience. So finding people who are similar to your website traffic, finding people who are similar to those who are watching your stories. It takes the guesswork out of you having to, find the perfect age and the gender and the interests and all those things. So that, in terms of targeting and getting set up, those are probably my 3 best tips. When it comes to creative, I always like to split test 3 different versions of media. So whether that's a video or different images or a carousel, and also 3 different versions of copy for every campaign. That's just my blanket rule for anyone who goes through my course.
Those are great rules. So a lot of our listeners are just getting started and they're very green, and they might be hearing you say things like pixel or custom conversions and be like, what is she talking about? I'm overwhelmed. So if you were going to sort of break it down for those of us who are listening and don't know what a pixel is, what is a pixel? What is a Facebook pixel?
Okay, so a Facebook pixel is, it does sound overwhelming, to be honest. But it's seriously so easy, especially these days. Like, every platform that you use makes technology and all this stuff simple, right? So you could just simply go into Google and say, how do I install my pixel on Kajabi? And it will give you literally step-by-step breakdown instructions, right? But a pixel is just a tiny piece of code that sits on the back end of your website that sends data back into Facebook. So Facebook's able to read the information from all the elements of your website and give it back to Facebook, so Facebook can get you better results and also allow you to monitor your results a little bit better.
And you can actually set up your pixel in a way where it will give back information to Facebook based on what you want your lead to do. So like you said, custom conversion, or for example, if like, for example, in a tiny offer funnel, you're optimizing it for purchase, it will actually send back information saying this person purchased and that's how much it cost you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'll be able to see, instead of like tracking things like how many people am I reaching. I think that's one of my biggest peeves, is like when people are getting started with Facebook ads, they're like obsessed with like link clicks or reach and things like that. But when you start utilizing your pixel, you can start looking deeper into how many leads am I generating, or like you said, like how many purchases are coming directly from your ads. And then when you have that pixel, you can go deeper and say, which audience is generating the most purchases, or which version of copy is generating the most sales. So definitely get onto that pixel.
Yes, absolutely. So you mentioned if you're starting with Facebook ads, keep it simple. When you're saying keep it simple, are you referring to audiences, like targeting audiences? Like, for example, if I was going to set up a Facebook ad, should I be targeting like 2 to 3 interests if I don't have a lookalike audience to bounce off yet? Or would you just say 1 for now and see what happens?
It totally depends on your budget. So if you wanted to start with like a $5 a day budget, as an example, I wouldn't split test any audiences. I would start with 1 interest-based audience, try and aim for an audience like above 1 million in size, and then leave it running for a week or 2 weeks, and then turn it off and test a new audience for a week or 2 weeks. So you can split test in that way. Instead of like seeing them all together, you can, split test different variables over time.
Beautiful. This is such great advice. Again, if you're listening, write it down for when you're ready to launch your Facebook ads. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about what we were talking about earlier, not doing the most. So there's the Facebook ad strategy of like launching ads that lead directly to your funnel where you're capturing leads or purchases and converting. And then there's another Facebook strategy of repurposing previous content to build audience and get people to know, like, and trust you faster. Is that something that you recommend doing with, existing content 6 weeks before a launch, or just in general? Like, should you have like a $5 weekly budget running for like repurposing content all the time? Or is there any sort of advice do you have around strategy with that?
Yeah, so I always recommend like that step one that I said of using Facebook ads to promote your lead magnet. That is the one Facebook ad that I think you should have running in your business 24/7, like all year round, just have it running. The benefit of that is not only do they go, so compared to like brand awareness, for example, if you were just driving traffic to your website, the benefit of a lead generation is you're not just generating traffic or like Instagram followers or anything like that. They're actually going to your email list. And we all know when it comes to online business, your best asset is your email list. Then once they're on your email list, you can set up like an automated email sequence to deliver your content in that way, and to then drive them to your Instagram and, build that relationship in that way. And with that strategy that I teach, with, having that Facebook ad running, promoting your lead magnet, by selling a product on the thank you page after they've downloaded the lead magnet, that money from the sale of that Tripwire product pays for your Facebook ads. That's the intention there, right? So the benefit of that is if the sales from your Tripwire product pay for your Facebook ads, then you can start increasing your budget, increasing your sales, growing your audience, and not really having to pay for it. So that's scaling and preparing for your launch in a really strategic and smart way. And yeah, that's probably my number one campaign that I think everyone should have running.
That makes perfect sense. It's such a good campaign to be running all year round. So when you do run that campaign, how often would you recommend changing your creative?
I just have it running and I don't change my creative at all. Like I find at the moment I have one image that is just outperforming everything else. And so I just stick with it because that campaign doesn't go to the same people every day. The purpose is to attract new people. So you don't need to focus on changing the creative unless you're not getting the results that you want.
I think I saw that ad, and that's how we learned about you. So it's working. And what's your ad spend around that ad that I know you said that it pays for itself with the Tripwire, but if your recommendation for anyone who's trying to build their list, what would you recommend for an ongoing ad?
Yeah, so I like to say start at $5. Do you know what I mean? If you're worried about budget, if you're worried about spending and wasting money on Facebook ads, start at $5. Wait until you can see that all the different elements of the funnel are converting, and then increase your budget. So at the moment, I think I'm spending about $50 a day, and then I'll slowly start to increase it.
Amazing. All right, let's go back to the ad. We're jumping all over the place. This is just really exciting because Facebook ads are exciting. I don't know if anyone else gets excited by Facebook ads, but I do. So we've talked about, what sort of the build of the perfect Facebook ad. Let's talk about copy, because I see a lot of ads that have like it's like a book. It's a storybook. It's like so long. It's like like a sales page. And then on the other side of that, I see like really short, like 3 sentences. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering, what is your, professional opinion in regards to copy on ads? Go long, go short?
Yeah, you have to firstly know your audience. Like, how do you communicate with your audience organically on Instagram? Do you write pages and pages of content in your organic posts, or do you keep it short? I think that's the first tip, because how you communicate organically should flow through into how you communicate with your audience in ads as well. It also has to be authentic to you, because if you attract an audience through an essay and yet that's not how you show up in other areas of your business, then that lead won't ever convert into a purchase. So you have to be authentic. You also have to split test. So, I do like split testing long and short versions of copy. I'm not one to write an essay though. Like I feel like, especially if you're targeting a cold audience, I don't know. It's just not me to write essays, but it might work for other people. So yeah, split test, be authentic, and take your organic content into Facebook ads. I can also share with you an ad copy guide. So I have like 4 versions of copy that I recommend people split test, and it just gives you a template and like the reasons why copy should flow in a certain way. So I can share that with you as well.
Well, that would be amazing. And we'll make sure to have that link in the show notes for this episode for anyone else who wants a little insight into ad copy. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, so I wanted to dive a little bit. We talked about copy. Now let's talk about videos versus static images. So videos tend to be the highest converting type of digital tool out there. So in your professional opinion, what would you say in terms of having videos as your creative for your Facebook ads versus static images?
I think it depends on what type of ad it is and who it's targeting. It also depends on how effective, or I guess how polished your videos are. Not so much polished, but how confident. I think confidence is important. How confident you are on video. So if you're someone who is not confident on video and you just think, I'm going to use a video because, they apparently perform really well, but then the video like is not very good, then it's probably not going to work as a part of your strategy. So you have to know yourself in order to know whether or not that's going to work. But my typical rule is when you're targeting a cold audience, I don't typically lead with video because they don't yet know me yet. And therefore, it's a little bit like too soon for that introduction, I find. But I love to use video as a form of retargeting, especially during a course launch. So when my doors are open, I'll record like an Instagram story, face to camera style video, and then export that to my phone, upload it into Facebook, and actually use that video in a newsfeed ad as part of that creative. So I definitely think video has a place in Facebook ads, especially when targeting a warm audience.
Beautiful.
Perfect.
That's what we want to hear. As you know, we're the video people, and that's exactly what we work on with our students, is helping them get that confidence on camera. Because like you said, if you're getting on camera and you're just not sure of yourself, if a picture says 1,000 words, what does a video say, right? So yeah. it's like, and a lot of people don't realize that it's not natural to be on camera. It's like you're looking into a lens and nothing is like coming back at you. So it's not, some people are like, oh, you're just born with it, you're natural, but that's not true. It takes practice, So that's exactly what we work on. And we completely agree that if you're going to be advertising on Facebook using video, you need to be confident. So I love that you use that. So it sounds to me like when it comes to Facebook, it's just a lot of testing, because every time we sort of ask you a question, you're like, well, it depends on this, or it depends on that. So would you say that for somebody who is interested in building their online business using Facebook ads, is for them to work with an expert such as yourself when they're getting started so that they can learn the ropes and sort of go from there, or spend that money in that testing phase to really figure out, Facebook ads on their own and their audience? Because I can share with you from our personal experience, when it came to doing Facebook ads for our launches, it was like, well, who is your target audience, and who are we targeting here? That was the biggest question. And on some level, we didn't know who our target audience is. So it's like there's that testing period where you really need to figure out who's actually going to bite, and then you can answer that question. So I know I asked a lot of questions there. I'm going to let you talk now.
I think I have seen a lot of people waste a lot of money on Facebook ads, and it's purely because they haven't set it up correctly. And if they took the time to learn how to do it correctly from the get-go, they would have saved a lot of money, right? And so that's why, I have an online course teaching Facebook ads specifically for course creators for that reason. It's an investment, but it saves you money through, not wasting money on Facebook ads, but also like reaching the right people. And there's a fine line, because you also get to a point in business where it's time to outsource your ads as well, right? But that typically is only when you're ready to start scaling your budget. Because if you only have a $5 a day budget, the chances of you getting incredible results with that budget is quite low. And so if you then have an ads manager creating and managing ads for you, their bill is not going to cover the cost of your Facebook ads. Like you're not going to get a return on investment, basically. So in those early stages, you are way better off learning how to do it yourself. Test all those different elements, including your funnel. And then when it gets to a point where you are ready to scale and spend like $20,000 a week on your launch, then it's like, okay, I'm going to need expert help in order to make sure I'm using this budget effectively. And that's when you would look to outsource.
What are some common mistakes that people make? I know it's, for example, not setting your pixels. That's a big, you got to set your pixel. But what are some other common mistakes that people tend to make in the early days?
Oh, like you said, there's so many different settings in the ads manager that if you don't know what buttons to press, you can make any mistake. So I'll share with you some, because I had a call with a client yesterday and he had a VA set up his ads. Luckily, he'd done my course. So when she was like saying things to him like, oh no, you don't need a pixel unless you're retargeting, he was like, no, actually I do, because I need to track my cost per lead. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then also she set up the wrong type of campaign. So he was wanting to generate leads, which is, in my opinion, best to create a conversion campaign, which is basically the first question Facebook asks when you select create campaign. It's like, what campaign do you want to create? And there's so many options. So when you're doing any sort of lead generation or wanting to optimize for purchases, you create a conversion campaign. But she had set up an awareness campaign. And so what that's going to do is just put your ad in front of as many people as possible, but not necessarily give you the results. It's not going to drive traffic to your landing page or generate you the leads. So choosing the wrong campaign objective is something I see a lot. The wrong targeting, again, is something that I see a lot. People aren't split testing. Again, that's another thing. Platforms and placements is another one. So after choosing your target audience, there's a little option for you to select manual placements or automatic placements. And that's basically telling Facebook where you want your ad to be seen, right? And if you choose automatic placements, your ad can go on a multiple number of different platforms, not even Facebook and Instagram. I know a client said that her ad appeared on Tinder. And she's like a coach and it wasn't ideal. So I typically select manual placements, and then I choose where I want my ad to be seen. If I'm creating an ad that I only want to be shown in Instagram stories, I'll select only Instagram stories. Or typically I'll just select Facebook and Instagram newsfeed and unselect all the other options as well. So it's just being really smart about, how you're spending your money, where you're spending your money, and who you want your ads to be seen by.
That's really bold, like just choosing, let's say, newsfeed, because I know when I'm setting up our ads, I'm like, it's like I'm shopping. I'm like, oh yeah, I want it there too, and there. I'll just, do I want it to be in Messenger? Maybe. So, but I know it's a bad one. I don't choose that one, but I know. It's just funny.
It also depends on your content, right? Because if you are an incredible writer, if you love writing copy, then you want to choose a platform where your copy is going to be able to shine. So the news feeds. Whereas if you're incredible on Instagram stories and you love talking face to camera, then perhaps you're better off utilizing that kind of platform or a platform where video shines.
That's great advice.
I love it.
Did you have
so
a
many
question?
Great tips. Yeah. I feel like we've covered so much ground. I also want to hear a little bit about what's next for you, Jessica. I think that you're launching something big in the coming year. if I'm not mistaken. Do you want to talk to us?
I'm on your email list, and I just got that
Did you get my email
right
this
now.
morning? Yeah, so I have a mastermind launching next year. We're opening applications soon, and that's for course creators who are ready to scale. So I'm teaming up with my copy buddy who specializes in, messaging, which is a critical component to be able to scale your courses. And obviously, I focus on the strategy and the mindset as well. So it's bringing all those elements in and helping women, over a 6-month period, really take their business to the next level.
Beautiful. That's exciting. I was just reading your email today, and I'm like, that's amazing that you are finally, you're offering something that's really going to take people to the next level. And it's really exciting.
Well, I'm an introvert at heart as well. And I don't know about you, but I love just having in my personal life, a small group of friends, and you get to know them really closely as opposed to a large room of people. So I guess I'm taking that approach in business as well. And I really just want to, work with a small group of women over a longer period of time and get them a bigger transformation.
That's amazing. And it's going to be a mastermind in the world of a pandemic, which is a little bit different, right? Because traditionally masterminds, you do have meetups and all of that kind of fun stuff. So that's going to be interesting for you to have, a virtual mastermind more so.
Yeah, well, I'm a part of a mastermind as well, and we just had our virtual retreat. We were supposed to go to Byron Bay and all meet up, but we did it virtually. And it was still so incredible, so transformative. And I think if we've learned anything from this pandemic, it's that the online business world is strong. Do you know what I mean? It's such a great place to be. And the people that I've surrounded myself with, they haven't been impacted by this pandemic. They're still hitting their targets. They're still scaling their businesses. And it's a huge privilege to be a part of that industry.
You're absolutely right. It's such a privilege, and there's so many opportunities as well, and new opportunities because people are just more open to having virtual interactions, virtual businesses. It's just, we're living online. So the world of opportunity.
I know, it's so exciting.
Just before we wrap up, I know Yasmin's like, No. I just have one last question. We sort of touched on this in the intro, but can you share with us just how long you've been in this industry and some of your successes for our listeners? Because this industry is so metric driven, but we want people to know you and we want people to follow you. So share with us some of your successes and just how long those goals took.
Yeah, so my eldest son is 6, right? So when he was born, I didn't even know the online business world existed. And my start to learning the online business took a long time. I was like, do I do a blog? Do you know what I mean? Do I be an affiliate marketer? And so from there until now, just in the last 8 weeks, I was able to retire my husband from his corporate job. So now we're both home. And then we're looking at getting a caravan and taking our family on the road and just having that ultimate freedom lifestyle, which is what I wanted 6 years ago. So that's what I've been able to create for my business. My business is a multi-6-figure business now, and my last launch generated over 30K in a week. But on top of that, I work with clients who generate multi-6 figures in a week, and we just use Facebook ads to just keep scaling. It just is simple. It can be simple. I think getting started is the hardest part. Scaling is actually easy.
Love it.
Very cool. Very cool.
You.
And Jessica, just on the point of scaling, and this may or may not make it into this, but at what point, does scaling ever become stagnant? And is there a point where you need to worry about rebuilding things or coming up with a new product? Have you seen that in the journey of some of your program participants and students?
So I would say just focus on scaling one thing at a time. You don't have to have multiple different products in order to hit $1 million in revenue. I would focus on doing one thing, but doing it really well. And then in terms of ads, like just hit your goal in terms of return on investment, and then just increase your budget.
Perfect.
It really is simple.
Simple.
Don't overcomplicate it. Like, a lot of people self-sabotage. They overcomplicate. They try to recreate, try to create like more new things. But I think bring it back to just keeping it simple. It is actually simple. It's our own brains that try to overcomplicate.
Yeah, it seems like what we keep coming up against in this industry over and over again is that it's about iterating. It's like, don't abandon ship. Just continue to iterate, continue to test, continue to make little tweaks.
Yeah.
And whoever's patient wins.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's been such a pleasure having you on our podcast. Just before we let you go, we always ask our guests if they could leave our listeners with one last wisdom bomb, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, I think it would be to not give up. Just don't give up. If you have a failed launch, like, that's okay. We need to normalize failure when it comes to online business and launching, but don't give up. Just keep tweaking and testing and relaunching.
Amazing. I love that you said we need to normalize failure, because all we see online is everybody putting their best foot forward and successes and 6-figure launches and all of that. And it's like, you're right. We need to normalize failure and come out and say, this happened, I've iterated, and I'm on my way to success.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much again for coming on our podcast. Where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Jessica_Tutton, or my website, jessicatutton.com.au. But I will also share a link with you guys to get that Facebook ad copy guide, and my lead magnet, which is all about targeting as well, which I think will help.
Beautiful. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank
you so much for being so generous. And we're definitely going to have you back on maybe in a couple of months, check in on your mastermind, and maybe some updates on Facebook advertising.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, Jessica. It's been such a pleasure. That's a wrap on another episode of the Course Creation Podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being a champion of ours. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe and find us on Apple Podcasts to leave us a review. We really want to hear from you. And we're going to be digging through reviews for our next guest to feature. So if you're interested in being a guest, then you know what to do. Also, join our private Facebook community called the Course Creation Crew to connect with other course creators. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at coursecreation.com. That is all. We appreciate you all so much and look forward to having you here next time.